everybody to the Single on Stiletto Show. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a matchmaker and dating coach at Dream Bachelor and Bachelorette, and I'm also the founder of Single on Stilettos. Today we have on our show Robert Manni, and he's the author of The Guy's Guide to Love, and I'm so excited to have him here today because today we're talking about what women don't know about men. And today we're only going to touch on three things, but they're three big things. But before we jump into that, Robert, I would love for you to tell our audience about you and your novel.
Okay, well, the name of the book, again, is The Guy's Guide to Love. It's kind of a male Sex in the City, so it gives you a peek under the tent into how men think. But it's a story, and it's done in a fun way. Two guys competing for love, sex, power, and money in New York's world of advertising.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into this. So I know women don't know a lot of things about men, but I think you give some three key tips about what women don't know about men. And your first tip is men are not that complicated. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that women, they seem to know, and one of my inspirations for writing a novel was that women kind of want to know what they know what they hope to know about men. So they're not necessarily getting into guys' heads, but they have this hope that men are a certain way. And a lot of times they're wrong, but the truth is not so bad. And the first thing about is men are not so complicated. Yes, men aren't complicated at all. What you see is what you get. There's not a lot of subtext with guys. They'll usually let you know right off the bat who they are. You'll get a vibe for their confidence level, their sense of humor, and their presence right away. If they're happy about something in a relationship, they usually don't say too much. If they have an issue, they'll let you know. After the issue's been resolved, they'll go on to the next thing. So guys are pretty straightforward, and they're not super complicated. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a put down of men, but that's how we deal with each other also. It's like I watch some of these housewives shows with my wife, and I can't believe all of the skullduggery that's going on and how there's so much subtext and how they talk about all these different things, these bad moves that some of these women make to each other. But guys aren't like that. If somebody pulls something, a guy will usually let them know right away, and something's going to happen, but it's going to get squared away. There's usually not that much hidden resentment and passive-aggressive stuff going on.
Well, and also what I've heard from, because I've interviewed a lot of male experts, and a lot of men have said that what a man says, take it for face value, because there's, like you were talking about, there's no subtext to what a man says. It's really what he means, right?
Well, for most guys, for guys at least, what you see is what you get, and if you ask a question, you get an answer. Now, this obviously things get politicized, where if you're in business and in politics or something, just saying hello is as political as it can be in real life. But, for the most part, if you're on a date with a guy and you ask him a question, he'll give you a straight-up answer unless he's, for some reason, trying to hide the truth.
I want to give you an example because I find this one comes up so much, and I need my audience to hear it from a man's point of view, okay? So I'm going to throw this out there.
All right.
I have a lot of women that will say to me they've gone out with a guy a couple of times, and in the early stages of dating, the guy will say to them, I'm not interested in having a relationship right now. I'm just dating. And women will come back to me and they'll say, but I think he really does want a relationship. That's not what he meant. Can you tell our audience what a man really means when he says that? Because I try to tell them and they don't believe me.
Well, I've never said that. I think the reason, though, that guys do say that is that they want to, maybe they're interested and they want to just make sure that things don't move too quickly. But to me, it's not a good thing to say. If you're meeting somebody and you're going out on a date and you say, I'm not interested, I'm just interested in dating, like, what does that mean? I guess it can assuage any concerns that they're not going to move too quickly, that the woman doesn't have to be concerned about getting serious too fast.
Right.
However, I don't know why a guy personally would say that. I don't know what the benefit is to the relationship. I don't know what the benefit is to the guy except for protection. And I don't know what the benefit is to the woman.
Well, sometimes I've heard men say it that we're just coming out of
Okay.
a long-term relationship or a divorce, and so he's not ready for a relationship, but he wants to get back out there, so he's not really ready for a relationship.
Okay, that's you contextualized it, and that makes perfect sense.
Right.
So they're letting the other person know a little bit about themselves. It's not that they just want to date. It's just
Right.
they come out of something where maybe they have some bumps and bruises from the past relationship, and they don't want to go there so quickly again. Because as you know, relationships can be there's the pain and the pleasure, and that's part of the magic.
Right, exactly.
Sure, hopefully.
Exactly. Okay, so your second tip is men don't pay attention. Well,
Yeah.
we knew that.
Right, exactly. So men pay attention to themselves, and they're usually in their own little world for whatever reason. Like as a creative person, I'm thinking all the time about creative stuff. I'm thinking about my podcast. I'm thinking about my book. I'm thinking about a screenplay. I'm thinking about ideas, and I'm off in another land. I know a lot of guys are like that. They're consumed with their work or whatever, and so a lot of times they don't pay attention to the relationship details as much as a woman might do. I think one way that a guy can overcome that is to always ask. Make sure every day he asks his relationship partner, "How was your day?" At least start there.
Right, but again, my audience is female, so if a guy that she's dating isn't doing that, what can she do to get him to do that?
I think she can start by asking him, "How was your day?" and just wait to see if he reciprocates, and ask him pointed questions in a casual way about different aspects of his life. And if he doesn't kind of pick up, get with the program, then I think there is pause for concern, because you want a guy to pay attention to you. Now, he's not necessarily going to pay attention to the details as much, but you want to start to nurture and foster in him some type of concern about the fine points of the relationship. And that means taking care of you emotionally as well as physically, as well as in any other way that seems appropriate.
Right, exactly. Okay, so now your third tip, and I love this one because I tell women this all the time, is men can't read your mind. They are not mind readers, ladies. So, Robert, tell our audience about this.
And that goes back to the not paying attention and not being that complicated. One, if not being that complicated, if a guy has a problem, with the relationship, he'll usually bring it up. And then you get an answer, and he gets an answer. He might agree or disagree, but he's not going to belabor it and talk it through. It'll be like, all right, I know her answer. In terms of paying attention, we realize that that's an issue, that guys are kind of off in their own world. So the aspect that men can't read your mind, they assume, like most people assume, that other people feel the same way or think the same way they do. And we all do that in life. So guy's going to think that a woman thinks the same way as they do, but that's not necessarily true.
Right.
So a woman could be carrying around an issue that she may feel that she has brought up in her own, around the bend way, or maybe not directly, that's important to the relationship, and the guy might not have a clue. I was in a live-in relationship for a number of years, and when it ended, I was kind of blindsided, and I didn't realize what was wrong. And it turned out to be a good thing, because I've been much happier afterwards, because I wasn't that happy. I didn't know why, but I didn't take the time to figure out why. But I think she took all of her time figuring out why she was unhappy, and she let me know, and I had no idea. And I said that to her, I'm not a mind reader, and we ran into each other a year later, and she actually said, you know what, I should have said more about what was on my mind, because it wasn't fair to you. Well, that's just showbiz. That's just the way it is. But for women, I think a great piece of advice is men cannot read your mind. If you have something that's important to you, don't worry about if I'm going to be a nag or this or that. If it's that important to you, you better get it out there, because you can't rely on the guy to figure it out, because he's only going to be sensitized to that if you bring it up in some way. You can't assume that he's going to think like a woman. Women are very sensitive, and they pick up on this stuff all the time with each other. And guys are just not that way with each other either. I don't see my buddy and say, hey, you look like you're in a bad mood today. I figure, whatever. You want a beer? That's just how we are with each other. If a guy has a problem, he'll tell the other guy, says, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And then you listen, because that's a big deal. But otherwise, we're not gonna know, because we don't show our cards that way.
Exactly, but I will caution women in how you bring it up. Don't bring it up in an attacking way.
Right.
Because if you bring it up in an attacking way, like you're doing this wrong or whatever, I'm miserable and blah, 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 he's going to get defensive and he's not going to be receptive to what you have to say. So bringing it up in a way where it's a discussion and you're not attacking him, right, Robert?
Absolutely. Well, that's just, for anybody, constructive criticism is one thing, but, putting a guy in the defensive is a dangerous behavior for women, because I can tell you from personal experience what a guy will do at a certain point. Click, shut down, and you're not going to get anything out of him. And, that's your own doing. So women have to be sensitized that guys think a little bit differently, and they have to find their way in to get the guy's attention to be able to discuss a specific topic or issue that's important to you.
Exactly. All right. These have been some awesome tips. So, Robert, tell our audience how they can find you in your book.
Best place is robertmanni.com. My website. There's information on my weekly Guys Radio podcast, which is also on iTunes. You can pick up my book, and there's free excerpt on there, 3 chapters you can get. And also Twitter, Facebook, all that other stuff is connected. So, but robertmanni.com, there's a new blog about life, love, and the pursuit of happiness every week.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on the Single and Stiletto Show. If you like our show, it's available both in video format and podcast format. If you like to see the videos, you can go to singleandstilettos.com. And if you like to get the podcast, you can download it from iTunes. If you like to get our free ebook on 3 secrets guaranteed to attract any man based on scientific research, you can click right here on the video, or you can go to singleandstilettos.com.